My name is Jessica Walker, and I just turned 32. For 32 years, my family has somehow forgotten my birthday while throwing extravagant parties for my brother Brian. This year was no different, except for one thing. I had secretly become the top performer at my investment firm, earning a bonus that would change everything. While they were busy planning another celebration for my brother, I made a decision that would finally force them to notice me. Tricky part? They had no idea what was coming. Before I share how I finally stood up for myself, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe so you don't miss more stories about my journey to reclaiming my worth. Growing up in a suburban neighborhood outside of Boston, my family looked picture perfect from the outside. My father, George, worked as a senior manager at a prestigious bank downtown. He wore tailored suits, carried a leather briefcase, and commanded respect everywhere he went. My mother, Elizabeth, was a full-time homemaker who dedicated her life to maintaining our household and supporting my father's career aspirations. Then there was my brother Brian, 3 years older than me. The golden child of our family and a talented athlete who seemed to excel at every sport he tried. Our house was spacious, with 4 bedrooms and a manicured lawn that my father meticulously maintained every weekend. We weren't wealthy, but definitely comfortable middle class. We took annual vacations to Cape Cod, had 2 cars in the driveway, and never worried about putting food on the table. From the outside looking in, we were the ideal American family. But inside those walls, I often felt invisible. The family dynamic revolved around Brian and his accomplishments. Dinner conversations centered on his latest game, his coach's praise, or the college scouts who were starting to take notice. My academic achievements barely registered a nod. I remember my 7th birthday with painful clarity. It fell on the same day as one of Brian's important soccer tournaments. I woke up that morning with butterflies in my stomach, excited to celebrate. I had dropped hints for weeks about the new art set I wanted, complete with watercolors and special brushes. I even mentioned it directly to my mother the night before. "Mom, tomorrow is going to be so special," I had whispered as she tucked me in. "Yes, honey. Brian's tournament is very important. We need to all be there to support him," she replied, completely missing my meaning. The next morning, I came downstairs in my favorite purple dress, hair neatly brushed, expecting at least a happy birthday from someone. Instead, I found my parents rushing around, packing coolers with sports drinks and snacks for Brian's tournament. "Jessica, hurry up and get your shoes on. We need to leave in 10 minutes, my father called out, not even looking in my direction. "But Dad, do you know what day it is?" I asked, my voice small but hopeful. He glanced at his watch. "Yes, it's Saturday, and we're going to be late if you don't hurry." No one remembered. Not my mother, not my father, and certainly not Brian, who was too busy mentally preparing for his games. We spent the entire day at the soccer field, where I sat on hard bleachers watching my brother score goals while the special day I had looked forward to slipped away unacknowledged. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I snuck downstairs and made myself a cake using 2 pieces of sandwich bread with peanut butter in between. I stuck a candle from the junk drawer into it and whispered happy birthday to myself in the dark kitchen. I blew out the candle and wished that next year would be different. It wasn't. By the time I turned 12, I had learned to lower my expectations. That year, my birthday fell during a statewide academic conference where Brian was presenting a science project. My parents decided they both needed to attend, leaving me with my grandmother Eleanor. Grandma Eleanor was the one person who seemed to truly see me. She arrived with a small chocolate cupcake with a single candle and a tiny wrapped gift. "Happy birthday, my sweet girl," she said, pulling me into a warm hug that smelled like cinnamon and cold cream. "Thanks, Grandma," I replied, feeling tears well up despite my best efforts. "At least you remembered." She placed her weathered hands on my shoulders and looked directly into my eyes. "Jessica, listen to me. Sometimes people get so caught up in the noise that they miss the music. Your brother makes a lot of noise, but you, my dear, you are making beautiful music in your own quiet way. That night, as we sat together on the porch swing, Grandma Eleanor told me something I would carry with me for years to come. The most important gift you can give yourself is your own approval. Don't wait for others to celebrate you when you can celebrate yourself. After that, I stopped expecting my family to remember my birthday. Instead, I began a tradition of treating myself to something special each year, even if it was just a new book or an ice cream cone from my favorite shop. I poured my energy into my studies, discovering a passion for business and accounting that would later shape my career path. In high school, I joined the debate team and the business club, finding my voice and confidence outside my family's shadow. While Brian's trophies lined the mantel and his newspaper clippings filled my mother's scrapbooks, I quietly built my own identity and sense of self-worth. My report cards were stellar, my SAT scores exceptional, but these achievements were barely noted at home. Jessica got straight A's again. My mother would comment casually while passing the potatoes at dinner, before quickly pivoting to, "Brian, tell us about the game on Friday." Coach Thompson called and said the scouts from State University might be there. I learned to find validation in my own accomplishments rather than seeking it from my parents. When I was accepted to every college I applied to, I celebrated by taking myself out for a solitary dinner at a nice restaurant. When I won a prestigious essay contest, I bought myself a beautiful journal with the prize money. These small acts of self-recognition became my armor against the constant oversight. By the time I graduated high school, I had developed a resilience that would serve me well in adulthood. I had also learned an important lesson. If I wanted something in this world, I would have to get it for myself. No one was going to hand me recognition or appreciation. I would have to earn it, and more importantly, I would have to learn to give it to myself first. As I packed for college, carefully folding sweaters and arranging books in cardboard boxes, I made a silent promise to myself. The invisible girl from childhood would become a woman impossible to ignore. I earned a full scholarship to Northeastern University, where I majored in finance with a minor in accounting. Those 4 years were transformative for me. Away from my family's dynamics, I blossomed. I joined study groups, made friends who valued my intelligence and wit, and caught the attention of professors who recognized my aptitude for financial analysis. While I was thriving academically, back at home, Brian's athletic career continued to be the family's primary focus. He had received a partial athletic scholarship to a state university, and my parents attended every home game, often driving hours each way. When I called home with news about making the dean's list or landing a competitive internship, the conversations would quickly shift to Brian's latest achievement or challenge. "That's nice, honey," my mother would say after I shared my accomplishment. "Did I tell you Brian scored the winning touchdown last weekend? There's a video online. I'll send you the link." My graduation day arrived in May, a beautiful spring morning with clear skies and mild temperatures. As I put on my cap and gown, I felt a mixture of pride and sadness. I had finished at the top of my class, with job offers from several prestigious firms already in hand. Yet when I scanned the crowd during the ceremony, I saw only one familiar face, Grandma Eleanor, now using a cane but beaming with pride. My parents had chosen to attend Brian's end-of-season baseball banquet instead. "We're so sorry, Jessica," my mother had explained over the phone the week before. "But this is really important for Brian's networking. The coach is introducing him to some professional scouts." I swallowed my disappointment and focused on the milestone I had achieved. After the ceremony, Grandma Eleanor took me to dinner at an upscale restaurant near campus. "I am so proud of you," she said, raising her glass in a toast. "You have accomplished this on your own terms, and that makes it even more remarkable." 2 weeks after graduation, I started my career at Hamilton Financial, a leading investment firm in Boston's financial district. I threw myself into the work, eager to prove myself in the competitive environment. My analytical skills and attention to detail quickly caught the attention of senior management, and I was given increasingly challenging assignments. By my 26th birthday, which once again passed without acknowledgement from my family, I had been promoted twice and was managing my own team of analysts. My salary had tripled since my starting position, and I had moved into a sleek apartment in a desirable neighborhood. While my personal bank account grew, my emotional connection to my family continued to wither. Brian's athletic career had peaked in college. He wasn't quite good enough for the professional leagues, a reality that sent him into a prolonged period of uncertainty. He moved back home at 29, ostensibly to figure out his next steps, while my parents supported him financially and emotionally. Meanwhile, I continued to climb the corporate ladder, each success feeling both sweet and somehow hollow, without anyone to truly share it with. Last year, I was assigned to lead a major client acquisition project, tasked with securing a $70 million account that would significantly boost our firm's portfolio. The pressure was immense, the hours brutal, but I thrived on the challenge. For 6 months, I worked 14-hour days, coordinating teams across 3 departments, developing innovative financial strategies, and personally handling client presentations. During this intense period, I found unexpected allies in 2 colleagues, Amy Chin and Mark Rodriguez. Amy was our marketing director, a brilliant strategist with a wicked sense of humor who became my sounding board and occasional shoulder to cry on. Mark was a senior financial analyst who stayed late many nights to help me crunch numbers and refine projections. They became more than coworkers. They became true friends who saw and appreciated my value. "You're the most capable person in this entire building," Amy told me one night as we shared takeout at 11 p.m. in my office. "And someday everyone is going to know it." When the project finally concluded successfully, securing not just the initial $70 million, but an additional $30 million in investments, the CEO himself called me into his office. "Jessica, what you've accomplished here is nothing short of extraordinary," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "You've set a new standard for client acquisition at Hamilton." That meeting ended with news of a substantial promotion and a performance bonus of $250,000, the largest in the company's history for someone at my level. I sat in my car afterward, hands shaking with excitement, and called my parents. "Mom, Dad, I have amazing news." I began when my mother answered. "Jessica, can I call you back?" she interrupted. "We're at the unemployment office with Brian. He's finally applying for some jobs, and we need to help him with the paperwork." I didn't call back, and neither did they. That evening, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell my family about my bonus or promotion. For once, I would keep my success entirely to myself. While I was building my career and financial stability, Brian continued to struggle, his college glory days fading further into the past. He cycled through a series of part-time jobs, never lasting more than a few months at each. My parents dipped into their retirement savings to help him with rent when he briefly moved into his own apartment, covered his car payments when he was between jobs, and continued to treat him as the center of their universe despite his 35 years of age. The irony wasn't lost on me. I, the forgotten child, had become financially successful beyond my parents' imagination, while Brian, the golden boy, relied on their dwindling resources. Yet, in their eyes, he was still the one who needed and deserved their support, while I was simply doing fine on my own. Little did they know just how fine I was actually doing, or how their continued dismissal of my existence was about to catalyze a decision that would finally make them take notice. As my 32nd birthday approached, I noticed the familiar pattern beginning again. Not a single mention from any family member about my upcoming birthday, not even a casual anything special planned this month, during our infrequent phone calls. Meanwhile, preparations for Brian's birthday, which fell 2 weeks after mine, were already in full swing. My mother called on a Tuesday evening as I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. "Jessica, we're planning something really special for Brian's birthday this year," she announced without preamble. "He's been having such a hard time lately, and we think a really big celebration might lift his spirits." I cradled the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to highlight numbers on the spreadsheet before me. "Oh, what are you planning?" "We're renting out the function room at the Harborview Hotel. It's quite expensive, but worth it. We're inviting all his old teammates and friends from college. Your father is hiring that band Brian likes too." Her voice buzzed with excitement. "We were hoping you could contribute to the gift we're getting him. We found a vintage leather jacket like the one his favorite basketball player wears. It's $1,500. So, if you could pitch in $500, that would be wonderful." I set down my highlighter, a familiar ache spreading through my chest. "Mom, my birthday is next week. Do you and Dad have any plans?" There was a pause, then a flustered laugh. "Oh, is it that time already? Well, we can certainly get a cake or something when you come over for Sunday dinner. But about Brian's gift." I closed my eyes, absorbing yet another confirmation of my place in the family hierarchy. "I'll think about it, Mom. I need to go now. I have a meeting early tomorrow." The following weekend, I attended the obligatory family dinner at my parents' house. These monthly gatherings had become increasingly uncomfortable as I grew more successful and Brian more dependent. My brother, now sporting a scruffy beard and perpetual look of entitlement, usually dominated the conversation with complaints about his latest job interview or boss. "They just don't appreciate creativity anymore," he lamented over pot roast, describing why he'd walked out of his last position at a sporting goods store after just 3 weeks. The manager kept harping on punctuality and inventory procedures when I was trying to develop a whole new display concept. My father nodded sympathetically. "The corporate world doesn't know how to handle free thinkers like you, son." I took a sip of water to avoid commenting. Brian had never held a job longer than 2 months, yet was treated like a misunderstood genius rather than an irresponsible adult. As dessert was served, I decided to test the waters. "So, next week is going to be a special day," I mentioned casually. My mother brightened. "Yes, the contractor is finally coming to look at redoing Brian's bathroom in the basement. We're thinking of adding one of those rainfall shower heads he likes from the gym." My father nodded. "And don't forget, it's the final deposit deadline for Brian's birthday venue." "Jessica, have you decided about contributing to the gift?" I stared at them both, the realization settling like a stone in my stomach. They truly had no idea my birthday was coming. It wasn't just being overshadowed by Brian's celebration. Mine had been completely erased from their consciousness. Actually, I said quietly I was referring to something else. But never mind. Neither of them pressed the issue, turning instead to discuss the cake flavor Brian might prefer for his party. That night, I called my friends Amy and Mark, inviting them over for drinks at my apartment. As we sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I shared the latest family dinner saga. "I don't understand how they can consistently forget something as basic as the day their own daughter was born," Amy said, refilling my wine glass. "That's not normal, Jess. That's not just being busy or distracted." Mark leaned forward, his expression serious. "It's a pattern of devaluing you. And you keep giving them opportunities to do it again and again." "So, what am I supposed to do?" I asked, feeling the familiar mixture of hurt and resignation. "Cut them off? They're still my family." Amy set her glass down with purpose. "What if, instead of seeking their validation, you did something bold for yourself? Your birthday is coming up. Why not give yourself an amazing gift this year? Something that celebrates all you've accomplished without them." "Like what?" "A spa day." I laughed, but without humor. "Think bigger," Mark suggested. "You've got that bonus sitting in your account. What's something you've always wanted but never thought you could have?" We talked late into the night, and somewhere between the second bottle of wine and midnight confessions, an idea began to take shape. Mark mentioned a coastal property his cousin was selling in Maine, a small but charming house overlooking the Atlantic. It's about 3 hours from Boston. In this picturesque little town, he explained. 3 bedrooms, private beach access, incredible views. He's asking $400,000, but would probably take less for a quick, cash sale. The thought of owning a vacation home had never seriously crossed my mind. It seemed like something for older, established people or wealthy families, not for a single woman in her early 30s. But as Mark showed me photos on his phone, something stirred inside me. The little blue house with white trim, perched on a rocky outcropping with the vast ocean beyond, looked like freedom. "This is crazy," I said, even as I kept swiping through the pictures. "I can't just buy a house on a whim." "Why not?" Amy challenged. "You have the money. You've worked insanely hard for it. And unlike some people who shall remain nameless, you don't have anyone supporting you or bankrolling your life." Over the next few days, the idea took root and grew. I researched the area, looking into property values, maintenance costs, and the logistics of owning a second home. I contacted Mark's cousin Tyler and arranged a video tour of the property. Each virtual step through the sun-drenched rooms strengthened my resolve. The house needed some updates but was structurally sound. The master bedroom featured a wall of windows facing the ocean, and the wraparound deck would be perfect for morning coffee or evening cocktails. I could already imagine weekends there, far from office politics and family dynamics, with only the sound of waves and seagulls for company. When Tyler mentioned another interested buyer, I made a decision that surprised even myself. I offered $425,000. All cash with a quick closing. My offer was accepted the same day. As I signed the electronic documents initiating the purchase, I felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and defiance. For 32 years, I had been the good daughter, the one who didn't make waves, who accepted being forgotten and overlooked. This house represented something new. A declaration of my worth that required no one else's acknowledgement or approval. I decided not to tell my family about the purchase. Not yet. This was my gift to myself. My private celebration of all I had accomplished. And perhaps, just perhaps, it would finally make them see me. On the morning of my 32nd birthday, I woke up before my alarm. Sunlight streaming through the blinds of my bedroom window. For a moment, I lay still, listening to the quiet of my apartment and the distant city sounds below. My phone showed no notifications. No missed calls, no text messages wishing me a happy birthday. Not from my parents, not from Brian. Exactly as expected. I padded to the kitchen in my slippers and made myself a cup of strong coffee. From my refrigerator, I retrieved a small box containing a chocolate cupcake I'd purchased the night before from my favorite bakery. I placed a single candle in the center, lit it, and quietly sang "Happy Birthday" to myself, a tradition dating back to that lonely 7th birthday with sandwich bread cake. "Make a wish, Jessica," I whispered to myself before blowing out the candle. My wish was simple: courage. Courage to fully claim the life I'd built and the happiness I deserved. I dressed carefully for work in a charcoal gray suit with a silk blouse, applied my makeup with precision, and headed to the office. The workday started normally, with back-to-back meetings and email responses. Around noon, Amy appeared at my office door with a mischievous smile. "Conference room, 5 minutes," she said mysteriously. "Quarterly planning review." I frowned, checking my calendar. "I don't have that scheduled." "Trust me, it's important," she insisted before disappearing down the hallway. 5 minutes later, I walked into the conference room to find it decorated with streamers and balloons. Amy, Mark, and about 10 other colleagues stood around the table where a cake blazed with candles. "Surprise!" they shouted in unison as I stood speechless in the doorway. "You didn't think we'd forget, did you?" Amy asked, pulling me into a hug. We know how important today is, Mark added, guiding me to the head of the table where a small pile of wrapped gifts waited. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I don't know what to say. Thank you all so much. The impromptu party lasted through lunch, with cake and champagne shared among friends and colleagues who genuinely seemed happy to celebrate me. The CEO even stopped by briefly, raising a plastic cup in my honor and thanking me again for my work on the recent project. As the gathering wound down, Amy and Mark presented me with their gift, a small envelope containing a printed reservation for a flight to Portland, Maine for the coming weekend. For your first visit to your new vacation home, Amy explained. We figured you could use some help getting set up, so we're coming too. Mark's truck is good for hauling furniture, and I have impeccable decorating taste. I hugged them both, overwhelmed by their thoughtfulness. You guys are the family I chose, I said softly. That afternoon, I left work early for my appointment with the real estate closing attorney. The process was surprisingly straightforward, a series of signatures and initials on documents that transferred ownership of the main property to my name. When the attorney handed me the keys, they felt significant in my palm, weighty with possibility. Congratulations, Ms. Walker, he said with a smile. You are now the proud owner of a piece of the Maine coastline. I drove home with the keys in my pocket, occasionally touching them through the fabric of my slacks to reassure myself they were real. As I pulled into my apartment building's garage, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Jessica, we need your portion for Brian's gift by this weekend. The store is holding the jacket but needs full payment. Also, we're going to need help setting up the venue the day before. Let me know which hours you can be there. No mention of my birthday. No acknowledgement of the date. Just more demands for Brian's upcoming celebration. For the first time in memory, I didn't feel the usual pang of hurt. Instead, I felt something closer to pity, mixed with a newfound sense of liberation. I typed a response I would have considered unthinkable just weeks before. I'm sorry, but I won't be able to contribute to the gift or help with setup. I have other commitments that weekend. I pressed send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone. Tonight was for me. I had reservations at Maison Laurent, an upscale French restaurant I'd always wanted to try but had been saving for a special occasion. I would dine alone, with a good book for company, and toast to the new chapter one was beginning. As I changed into a black cocktail dress and heels, I caught my reflection in the bedroom mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow, more confident, with a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. I raised an imaginary glass to her. Happy birthday to us, I said aloud. Here's to being visible. The week after my birthday passed in a flurry of excitement as I prepared for my first visit to my new vacation home. I ordered essential furniture online to be delivered that weekend. Purchased bedding, kitchenware, and decorative items that spoke to the coastal aesthetic I envisioned. Each selection felt deliciously indulgent, a celebration of this bold step I'd taken. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from my mother, each more insistent than the last. Jessica, we haven't heard back about Brian's gift. The store needs an answer. Your father and I are disappointed you can't help with the party setup. Brian really wanted you there. We're having a family dinner on Saturday to finalize party details. We expect you to be there. I responded politely but firmly to each message, explaining that I had prior commitments I couldn't break. I didn't elaborate on what those commitments were. And, interestingly, no one asked. It was as if they couldn't conceive of me having important plans of my own. The day before my main trip, Brian himself called. Something that rarely happened unless he needed something. Hey sis, he began in the cajoling tone that usually preceded a request for money or a favor. Mom said you're bailing on my birthday preparations. I'm not bailing, Brian. I made other plans weeks ago that I can't change. What could be more important than your only brother's birthday? He demanded, a note of genuine bewilderment in his voice. The question struck me as so perfectly illustrative of our family dynamic that I almost laughed. Brian, my birthday was last week. Did you remember? A pause, then a defensive scoff. Of course I did. I was going to call, but things have been crazy with job interviews and stuff. You didn't remember, I said. Not a question, but a statement. And neither did Mom or Dad. Just like every year. Come on, Jess, don't be dramatic. It's just a birthday. You know how things get busy. Yes, I know exactly how things get busy when it comes to me, but never too busy for you. Enjoy your party, Brian. I hope you like the jacket. I ended the call feeling strangely light, as if I'd set down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for decades. Friday morning, I boarded a flight to Portland with Amy and Mark, my excitement building with each passing mile. From the airport, we rented a car and drove along the coast, windows down to let in the salt air and sunshine. When we finally pulled up to the little blue house on the cliff, I momentarily couldn't breathe. It was more perfect in person than in the photos. The weathered cedar shingles glowed golden in the afternoon light, the white trim crisp against the blue sky. A stone path led from the gravel driveway to the front door, lined with wild beach roses and lavender. And beyond the house, visible from every seaward window, the vast Atlantic stretched to the horizon, waves crashing on the rocks below. Holy wow, Amy whispered beside me. You hit the jackpot, Jess. I unlocked the front door with hands that trembled slightly, stepping into what was now my space. The interior was simple but charming, with hardwood floors, exposed beam ceilings, and a stone fireplace in the living room. Previous owners had left some basic furniture, a weathered leather sofa, a dining table with 6 chairs, and a king-sized bed in the master bedroom. We spent that first day cleaning, unpacking deliveries, and arranging furniture. By evening, exhausted but satisfied, we sat on the deck with takeout from a local seafood restaurant and bottles of cold beer, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of pink and gold. I still can't believe this is mine, I said, gesturing to the panoramic view. You earned it, Mark said simply. Every square inch. The weekend passed in a blur of small projects and explorations. We hung curtains and artwork, stocked the kitchen with essentials, and ventured into the nearby town to discover local shops and restaurants. I introduced myself to neighbors, a retired couple on one side and a family that used their home primarily in summer on the other. Everyone was welcoming, many expressing delight that the old Miller place would be regularly occupied again. On Sunday morning, my phone lit up with messages from my parents, reminding me about Brian's birthday the following weekend and expressing disappointment in my sudden unavailability. I set the phone aside without responding and joined Amy and Mark for a walk along the private beach accessible only to residents of our small cluster of homes. As we collected shells and watched seabirds dive for fish, Amy snapped photos of me looking happier than I had in years. There was one particularly beautiful shot of me standing on the rocks, arms outstretched to the ocean, face tilted up to the sun, hair blowing in the wind. I looked free. Later that afternoon, as we sat in Adirondack chairs on the lawn, Amy showed me the photos she'd taken. These are amazing, Jess. You should post them online. Let people see your gorgeous new place. I scrolled through the images, pausing on the one of me on the rocks. I don't know. I rarely post anything personal. That's exactly why you should, Mark chimed in. This is a major life moment. You should celebrate it publicly. I thought about it during the drive back to Boston, during the work week that followed, during the evenings when I found myself browsing online for more items for my coastal retreat. The idea of posting about my house purchase grew more appealing. It wasn't about showing off, I realized, but about claiming my accomplishment, making visible what had been invisible for too long. The night before Brian's birthday, I finally decided to do it. I selected several photos, the exterior of the house, the view from the master bedroom, the sunset from the deck, and that shot of me with arms outstretched to the sea. I crafted a simple caption. At 32, I decided to give myself the birthday gift I've always deserved, a place of my own by the sea. Looking forward to making memories in my new vacation home in coastal Maine. Sometimes the most meaningful celebrations are the ones we create for ourselves. I hesitated only briefly before pressing post, then set my phone aside and went to bed, not anticipating the storm that would break by morning. I woke the next morning to my phone buzzing incessantly with notifications. Bleary-eyed, I reached for it, expecting perhaps a few likes and congratulatory comments from friends. Instead, I found myself staring at a barrage of shocked, angry messages from family members. My mother had commented first, Jessica Marie Walker. When did you buy a house? How could you afford something like this while your brother is struggling to find work? Why would you need a vacation home when you could be helping family? My father followed. Very disappointed in your financial decisions. We need to have a serious conversation about priorities and family responsibility. Brian's comment was the most cutting. Nice to see where your priorities are, sis. Buying yourself a beach house while you couldn't even chip in for my birthday. Always thought you were selfish, now everyone can see it. The comments continued, with aunts, uncles, and cousins expressing various degrees of shock, judgment, and, in a few cases, grudging admiration. My phone began ringing almost immediately, my mother's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. Jessica, what is the meaning of this? She demanded without preamble. How could you make such a major purchase without discussing it with your father and me? And to post it online for everyone to see like you're flaunting it. Good morning to you too, Mom. I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. I bought a vacation home with my own money that I earned through my work. I didn't realize I needed permission. That's not the point, and you know it. How could you be so selfish when your brother needs help? Do you know how much he's been struggling while you're buying beach houses? Something inside me finally snapped. A dam breaking after years of contained emotions. Mom, yesterday was Brian's 35th birthday. You threw him a party at a hotel, hired a band, and bought him an expensive jacket. Do you know what you did for my 32nd birthday last week? Nothing. You didn't call. You didn't text. You didn't even remember it was happening. That's not true, she sputtered. We've always celebrated your birthdays. Name one birthday celebration you've organized for me in the last 20 years, I challenged. Just one. Her silence spoke volumes. For 32 years. I've watched you and Dad pour everything into Brian while treating me like an afterthought. I've accepted it, made excuses for it, and built my life despite it. But I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm done being invisible in my own family. We have never treated you as invisible, my mother protested. We've always been supportive of your, my own mom, my career, my accomplishments. When was the last time you asked me about my work? Did you know I led a $100 million acquisition last year? Did you know I received the largest bonus in company history? No, because you never ask, and when I try to tell you, you change the subject to Brian's latest job interview or financial crisis. My voice had risen, years of suppressed hurt pouring out in a torrent. I bought that house with my own money I earned through hard work and dedication. I didn't ask anyone for help. I didn't expect anyone to contribute. I made a decision for myself, by myself, because that's what I've always had to do. Jessica, I don't know where this is coming from. We've always loved you just as much as Brian. Love isn't just a feeling, Mom. It's actions. It's remembering birthdays. It's showing up for graduations. It's asking questions and listening to the answers. By those measures, I'm not sure you and Dad do love me as much as Brian. The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with my mother in tears and me feeling both drained and strangely liberated. I'd finally said aloud what I'd been feeling for decades. My father called next, his approach more tactical than emotional. Jessica, I think you've made a very unwise financial decision, he began, his banker voice in full effect. Vacation properties are money pits. The maintenance alone will eat through your savings, not to mention property taxes and insurance in a coastal area. Dad, I can afford it, I said simply. I make more money than you think. Even so, tying up your capital in a second home at your age is irresponsible. You should be maximizing your retirement contributions, building liquid savings. Maybe looking at investment properties in the city if you're interested in real estate. I almost laughed at the irony of receiving financial advice from a man who had depleted his retirement account to support his 35-year-old son. I appreciate the concern, Dad, but my financial house is in order. I made this decision after careful consideration. Well, since you've already made this questionable purchase, perhaps some good could come of it. Brian has been very stressed lately with the job search. A few weekends at the beach might be just what he needs to clear his head. I'm sure you wouldn't mind if he used the place occasionally. Family shares, after all. And there it was, the expectation that even my personal achievement should somehow serve Brian's needs. No, Dad. The house is not available for Brian to use. It's my private retreat, not a family timeshare. His tone chilled immediately. I see. So you'll flaunt your success, but refuse to share its benefits with your own brother? That seems rather cold. Jessica, what seems cold to me is that neither you nor Mom remembered my birthday last week, but you expect me to share my hard-earned property with Brian. The conversation ended in a stalemate, with my father expressing his profound disappointment in my selfishness. Brian's call came around noon, his tone wheedling rather than immediately confrontational. So, sis, that's quite a place you've got there. Maine, huh? Always liked it up there. It's beautiful, I agreed cautiously. Listen, I know we haven't always been super close, but I was thinking. That house looks perfect for a little getaway. Some of my buddies and I were talking about doing a weekend trip, maybe for my birthday since the actual day is being spent with the parents. It would be a great chance for us to bond, you know? You could come too, of course, since it's your place and all. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only was he asking to use my brand new house for a party with his friends, but he was framing it as a favor to me, a chance to bond after 32 years of self-centered behavior. Brian, the house isn't available for your use. It's my personal space. His tone shifted instantly. Seriously? You're going to be that petty? It's a vacation house, for God's sake. It's not like you'll be using it all the time. It's not about usage, Brian. It's about respect and boundaries. Something our family has struggled with when it comes to me. Oh, here we go with the poor little sister routine, he sneered. Always playing the victim when you've had everything handed to you. Some of us have had to actually struggle, you know. I couldn't hold back a laugh of disbelief. Handed to me? Brian, I worked my way through college on a scholarship while you were getting checks from Mom and Dad to supplement your partial athletic scholarship. I built my career through hard work and sacrifice while you bounced from job to job expecting parents to cover your rent. I saved and invested to afford this house while you're still asking for birthday gifts that cost more than my first month's salary. Tell me again about your struggles. You've always been jealous of me, he shot back. Always competing for attention. Well, guess what, Jess? Mom and Dad love me more. They always have. They always will. Enjoy your empty beach house alone. I ended the call, hands shaking not with hurt, but with anger. The raw truth of our family dynamic had finally been spoken aloud, the pretense stripped away. Later that evening, I received a joint text from my parents that represented the culmination of 32 years of family dysfunction. Jessica, we are deeply disappointed in your attitude and choices. Until you are willing to recognize your family obligations and show proper respect for our feelings, perhaps it's best we take some space from one another. We hope you will reflect on your priorities and come to understand that family must come first, always. I stared at the message for a long time, allowing the full weight of it to settle. They were essentially cutting me off, not because I had done anything wrong, but because I had finally stood up for myself and refused to continue the pattern of being overlooked and undervalued. I typed a simple response. I've spent 32 years putting family first and waiting for the same in return. I agree that space is needed. I hope someday you'll be able to see me, truly see me, as your daughter who deserves the same love and recognition you've always given so freely to Brian. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat by my apartment window looking out at the city lights. There was pain, yes, but beneath it a strange sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I had spoken my truth without apology or qualification. Whatever happened next, I would face it as the woman I had become, not the invisible girl I once was. The first few weeks after the fallout with my family were surprisingly painful. Despite years of being overlooked, the finality of the rupture left an ache I hadn't anticipated. I threw myself into work during the week and escaped to my coastal sanctuary on weekends, finding solace in the rhythm of the waves and the freedom of answering to no one but myself. Amy and Mark became my lifelines, checking in regularly and joining me for weekend trips to Maine when their schedules allowed. It was Amy who gently suggested I might benefit from talking to someone professional about my family history. Family dynamics like yours leave marks, Jess, she said one evening as we walked along the shore. It's not weakness to seek help in understanding and healing from that. I took her advice and found a therapist specializing in family trauma. Dr. Natalie Foster had a warm office overlooking the Charles River and a straightforward approach that resonated with me. In our first session, she asked me to describe my earliest memory of feeling overlooked by my family. I surprised myself by crying as I recounted that 7th birthday with the sandwich bread cake. What you're describing is a pattern of emotional neglect, she explained in our 3rd session. While your parents provided materially, they consistently failed to meet your emotional needs for recognition, celebration, and equal treatment. That creates a particular kind of wound that often goes unrecognized because there were no dramatic events of abuse, just a persistent absence of what should have been present. Through weekly sessions, I began to untangle the complex web of family dynamics that had shaped me. I learned about the role I had unconsciously accepted as the responsible one who didn't need attention, while Brian was cast as the special one requiring constant support and recognition. I came to understand that my parents' behavior reflected their own limitations and unresolved issues, not my inherent worth or lovability. 2 months after the estrangement began, I joined a support group for adults dealing with family estrangement. There I met Alice, a woman in her 40s who had limited contact with her parents after years of being compared unfavorably to her sister. The hardest part, she shared in one meeting, was letting go of the fantasy that they would suddenly see me clearly and make amends. Once I accepted that they might never change, I could focus on building the life I wanted rather than the relationship I had always craved. Her words struck a chord. I had been holding on to hope that my parents would have some dramatic realization about their treatment of me, perhaps even make a grand gesture of apology. Alice helped me see that while such an outcome was possible, pinning my happiness on it was another form of giving them control over my emotional well-being. As summer turned to fall, I established new traditions and rhythms in my life. I hosted small dinner parties at my apartment, inviting colleagues who became friends. I joined a hiking group that explored New England trails on weekends when I wasn't at the coast. I volunteered at a mentoring program for young women interested in finance, finding unexpected fulfillment in guiding others who reminded me of my younger self. At work, I continued to excel, earning another promotion that came with increased responsibility and compensation. The confidence I had gained from standing up to my family translated into more assertive leadership, and my team thrived under my direction. My coastal home became my sanctuary and joy. I planted a garden, painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow, and learned the names of local birds that visited my feeders. I made friends with neighbors and shopkeepers in town, gradually becoming part of the community fabric. On clear nights, I would sit on my deck with a glass of wine, watching stars appear over the ocean, and feel a peace I had never known growing up. It was during this period that I met Daniel Harris, a marine biologist who lived year-round in the house 2 doors down from mine. We first connected over a community beach cleanup event, then began taking morning walks together along the shore. His quiet intelligence and genuine interest in my thoughts was refreshingly different from the dismissive treatment I had grown accustomed to from family. "You light up when you talk about your work," he observed during one of our walks. "It's clear you've found something you're passionate about." Such simple recognition. Yet it meant the world coming from someone who hardly knew me but saw me more clearly than those who should have known me best. For months into the estrangement, I received an unexpected email from my mother. The subject line simply read, "Thinking of you." "Dear Jessica," it began. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting since our last conversation. While I still don't understand all of your feelings, I miss having you in my life. Perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime when you're ready. Love, Mom." It wasn't the dramatic apology I might once have hoped for, but it was an opening. After discussing it with Dr. Foster, I agreed to meet my mother at a neutral cafe halfway between our homes. The meeting was awkward and tense at first. We made small talk about the weather and her garden, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Finally, over her second cup of tea, my mother sighed deeply. "I've been looking through old photo albums," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "There are so few pictures of just you. So many of Brian's games and ceremonies, but hardly any of your special moments. I never noticed that before." It was a small acknowledgement, but a significant one. "That's part of what I've been trying to tell you, Mom. I often felt like an extra in Brian's story, not the main character in my own. I don't think we meant it to be that way," she said softly. "Brian was always so loud about his needs, and you were so quiet and capable. It was easy to focus on the squeaky wheel." "Intent doesn't change impact," I replied, a phrase I had learned in therapy. "Whether you meant to or not." The message I received was that my accomplishments, my milestones, even my birthday weren't important enough to remember. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "I'm sorry, Jessica. I truly am. I don't know if we can fix the past, but perhaps we can do better going forward." It wasn't everything, but it was a start. We agreed to proceed slowly, with clear boundaries. I would not be rushing to family gatherings or financial discussions about Brian, but I was open to rebuilding a relationship based on mutual respect and recognition. Over the following weeks, my father also reached out, his email more formal but expressing similar sentiments about wanting to reconnect. Brian remained distant, occasionally posting passive-aggressive comments on social media that I chose to ignore. As my 33rd birthday approached, I decided to host a small gathering at my coastal home. I invited Amy, Mark, Daniel, and a few other close friends who had supported me through this challenging year. I did not invite my family, feeling that boundary was still important to maintain. The day before my birthday, a card arrived in the mail, signed by both my parents. Inside was a gift certificate to a local nursery near my main house, with a note, "For your garden. May it grow and flourish like you have. Happy birthday, Jessica." It was a small gesture, but significant in its timing and thoughtfulness. They had remembered without prompting, had acknowledged my special day, and had chosen a gift that recognized my new life rather than trying to pull me back into old patterns. On my actual birthday, I woke to the sound of waves and birdsong, made coffee, and took it out to my deck to watch the sunrise over the Atlantic. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Happy birthday, Jessica. Thinking of you today and sending love." Later, surrounded by friends enjoying a seafood dinner on my deck, I felt a contentment that went beyond happiness. I had found my voice, created boundaries, and begun building authentic connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or history. When Daniel raised his glass in a toast, his words captured perfectly the journey I had been on. To Jessica, who had the courage to write her own story rather than accepting the role she was given. May this year bring you all the joy and recognition you deserve. The road to healing a lifetime of family dysfunction was long, and I knew there would be setbacks and difficult conversations ahead. But I had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all, that my value did not depend on others' recognition of it. I had worth inherent to my being, talents worthy of pride, and accomplishments deserving of celebration, whether anyone else acknowledged them or not. My beach house stood as a symbol of this truth, a tangible reminder that I had the power to create my own happiness and define my own success. It wasn't just a vacation home. It was the physical manifestation of my declaration of independence from patterns that had diminished me for too long. As the evening wound down and my friends helped clear dishes and fold chairs, I stood at the edge of my property, looking out over the darkened ocean. The rhythmic sound of waves breaking on the shore below seemed to whisper a truth I had finally come to embrace. Sometimes the family that nurtures us best is the one we create for ourselves. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is simply saying, I matter and I deserve to be seen. Have you ever had to create a boundary with family members who consistently overlooked your achievements or special days? What did you do to finally stand up for yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they deserve to be celebrated too. Thank you for being here with me today. And remember that sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is permission to be seen and valued, especially when others have failed to do so.